Thank you for staying with us on G Factor on Ben TV. We're with Dr Margaret Smith. We've got Jo here and Simone. Caffeine, tell us about caffeine.
Caffeine. So we all, well, pretty much all of us like to drink caffeine in some form or another, whether it's coffee or tea, and there's plenty of other caffeinated products around, but some people get really addicted to caffeine. And the reason for that is that caffeine has got this little chemical in it, and it's called a methyl donor, and what it does is it turns genes on. So in the morning when you have a cup of coffee, what happens is caffeine turns on those higher functioning parts of our brain and turns off the really slow ones that we don't need, so that real quick pick-me-up. And some people have a need for more of those little chemical donors than others. So caffeine's like Ritalin. That drug Ritalin, they're the same thing. They both donate methyl groups. So the other thing is that if you're a slow caffeine metabolizer, so caffeine's a drug, so if you're really slow to clear that drug from your body, then you've got a risk of hypertension and heart attack. So 1 to 2 cups of coffee for people like me, but for others they're really fast clearers of the drug, and they're actually able to drink more coffee during the day. But if you're a little bit stressed and you're a slow clearer of caffeine, then it's probably not a good idea to drink too much coffee anyway, because it's only going to make your stress worse. Even though you think it might make you function better, it's probably going to create more stress.
How do people do that? Have a cup of coffee, then go to sleep?
Well, if you're a fast metabolizer, it's not so much of an issue, but if you're a slow metabolizer and you've had too much coffee, your heart will be racing. No, you're not in love, Jo. Your heart will be racing. You won't be able to turn off your brain, because remember, you've just donated all these little chemicals to your brain to turn it on. So people often don't sleep very well if they're slow caffeine metabolizers. So really important to know your genes and how you metabolize caffeine.
That's very interesting, isn't it? What about fitness, working out?
Fitness, so there are genes that make some people really good at sprint, power and sprint, and why some people are really good at endurance events like marathons. So people kind of work it out if they're really good at sprint events, or if they're much better at longer distance type events.
So would it be fair to say that you could predict an Olympic?
Well,
you're not a good distance runner, stick to the short distance.
Look, I used to run 10Ks every day, but I never ever thought about running a marathon, because anything over 10Ks, I became a plodder. I would have finished, but probably when the lights were being turned off at the end of the finish of the race. So, I probably might have even finished. So some people are really programmed for it. Whether you can pick whether people are going to be Olympic athletes or not, I think sometimes parents are really good determinators for their children being really good at some sports and being professionals in those sports. And let's face it, when it comes to pro golfers, they mostly start when they're about 2 or 3. We've all seen those images of them swinging clubs. But there's some really cool things you can know about sports genes. One is your recovery, how quickly you clear enzymes from your muscles, lactate, that stops you from having sore muscles. So we all know about athletes that plunge themselves into cold water baths. We see them out, footballers out walking in seawater to try and remove that lactate. So some people are naturally much better at that than others, so their recovery is important. And I think the important thing is that everyone will tell you they're competing in an event, but no one tells you how they're going to recover.
No one plans for recovery. You don't when you do your marathons, do you?
Marathons is about 20 years.
Because everyone's so excited.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, everyone's so excited. I'm competing in a marathon, but then no one tells you that it took them 3 months to recover. I think there's some conjecture as to whether human beings are actually meant to run these marathons and ultra marathon distances, because they actually cause damage to heart muscle. And you'll always hear in these events that someone's dropped dead, had a heart attack, because they're really just not programmed for it at all. Some of the other funky things are altitude training. You'll often hear of elite athletes and football teams especially going up into the mountains to train because it improves their fitness. Well, unless you have a particular variation on a gene called HIF1, you're not going to benefit at all probably from going up the mountains. So
that's how one size fits all for training doesn't work either. This is all about personalised health, and we've still got the medical model of one size fits all. And it's the same with training. Like, people have got to start to think about personalising training programs for each individual, the cool gene.
The cool gene, yes.
There are some neurotransmitters that make people seem to be really cool and
Yes.
laid back. So, you know, my neurotransmitters, for example, I'm a little bit on the stress and anxiety scale. Okay, I'm a bit of a little bit stressy, but not to the extreme because I have other genes that kind of smooth that out. But there are people who are called corporate warriors who are very laid back. Now, the difference between them and me is that when I wake up in the morning, my adrenaline is right up to the top of the cup. Okay, so that means I'm awake, I'm alert, I'm not on threat alert, but my brain is fully functioning.
So you don't need that coffee in the morning?
I like to have coffee, but generally my brain is wide and it's switched on. The corporate warrior, their brain is kind of like half switched on, but under moments of stress, their adrenaline goes up, they wake up, they're fully functioning, they're getting the job done. Me, with too much stress, the adrenaline overflows and I can't think straight.
And you
so I don't like stress. I don't want to work in a stressful environment like that. I would want to be able to shut the door, get the job done, and then come out and deliver the goods. But the corporate warrior, they can take on a lot more stress. So sometimes people like me will look at the corporate warrior who's pretty laid back and chilled, and there might be something going down in the office where we all need to react, and they're still there lounging back on their chair, and I'm thinking, do they even know what's going on? They haven't got any idea of it.
My point is, if you're in a meeting, a corporate meeting, you've got the person that's confident up there with their PowerPoint presentation and blah, 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 and you've got this person sitting there going, no, I hope they don't ask me a question. I hope not me.
Because there are genes, they call it the public speaking or death gene, okay? So if you get presented with public speaking or death, there are many people who go, I've got to die, I can't possibly get up there and be the person with the pointer and giving that presentation. Human beings are resilient, so over time you will learn to manage that public speaking gene. But you know, for so many people, they will stand up there, their heart will be racing, their mouth will be dry, they can hardly think of what they're going to say next, they're trembling. And you know, what happens is their stress hormones take over and they pump out a lot of cortisol. And it takes a long time to normalise, so it feels really uncomfortable.
And exhausting.
So there's a whole spectrum. Some people seem to just cope really well and sail through that corporate environment, while others are a bit more stressy.
So it is.
But we need all those people. We need all those people with all those abilities. People who are on the stress and anxiety scale tend to be a bit sharper overall. So, you know, it all takes all sorts. It's kind of like your genes are sitting there, but your environment can trigger them. So just because you have those genetic predispositions doesn't mean to say that, you know, you're going to necessarily get cardiovascular disease, for example, or diabetes. It really is about your genes and your environment and your lifestyle. So it's a whole bunch of things that are all into play. And so your genes aren't your destiny. I mean, you know, like the fatso gene, you know, it's called the fatso gene. If you've got 2 copies of that fatso gene, one of the best things you can do is eat protein, go out and move your body, because what happens is you don't get a full signal. People can sit down to eat, and you know, what are one of the things we're told? Stop when you've got a full signal. Well, try telling a person with the fatso gene to stop when they've got a full signal. They're not going to get a full signal.
I totally
The best way to get that is to exercise. You get better control of that feedback to your brain saying I'm full, and protein. It's one of the best things that they can do.
It's a great book. So it's called Gene Genius, and G Factor listeners or watchers, or however you want to say it, viewers can actually have an opportunity to win this book. So all you've got to do is like G Factor and put under a comment in saying Gene Genius, and you got a chance to win this book. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Margie Smith, for coming on the G Factor.
Thank you for having me.
Very interesting.
I hope it helps you with your love life, Jo.
Oh, I
hope it's been insightful.
I
hope you get past that 12 months.
I think it's going to change my life, this book. Thanks for watching G Factor. We'll see you next time. Hope it was as good for you as it was for us.
If you'd like to win a copy of Gene Genius, you can go in the drawer at win at Bent TV. So good luck, and if you win a copy, I hope you enjoy reading it.